All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Too Many Soccer Guys Tournament Edition. That's right. It's the most wonderful time of the year. Forget Christmas. FIFA has seen fit this summer to give us a beautiful bounty of football. You can wake up at 9 and watch football until after 10 o'clock at night if you really want to. There are 5 games on today. It doesn't get any better than that. So we are here, and we'll be coming a little bit more often because we want to make sure that we're keeping up to date with everything that is going on in the Euros and the Copa America, and even a little bit later on, probably not as frequently when we have to cover the Gold Cup because, let's be honest, who really cares? Even the American team that wins it doesn't care. But we do want to talk about this tournament, and you know, Stead,
Yes, sir.
I don't know how you feel, but today was almost like a little bit of a break from the madness that was the previous 72 hours. It just seemed like right from the start of the tournament on Friday up until the last game yesterday, it was just one thing after another, after another, after another. And I'm sure that we will talk about, the highs, definitely the lows, as we go through this. So what were your thoughts on this past couple of days?
Well, after getting all my various bets into my sites and everything like that, I was doing really, really well. I picked a couple of draws. I think I picked the Wales Switzerland draw, so I was pretty happy about that. And I had England over Croatia. I had the Netherlands winning. Of course, I had Belgium winning. I was doing really well. Today, I got completely sprayed in the face. Nothing worked for me today. Everything went wrong. And judging by our good buddy Celtic Cam's facial expression, I have a feeling he's in the same situation I am. So,
That's
but
because everybody had Slovakia topping that group right now.
Who, if you actually watch the game, I was like, okay, these boys can play. These guys are pretty good.
No, they were actually they were going to be one of my surprises.
Yeah.
I thought that was actually a pretty decent effort by them. Like all the other teams, first game jitters. You need to see who everybody's about. Whether Slovakia was that good or just Poland isn't as good as we necessarily thought they were going to be. But they were among the ones that I was really impressed with.
Yeah. But you know what? I'll say this. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. And granted, I was away with my family this weekend, so I was definitely just kind of seeing what was going on in the chat line and seeing when I could sneak away and stare at my phone without getting in trouble. But it was enjoyable. It was enjoyable. So this is what we love about these tournaments is the any given day somebody can lose and somebody can win, and you'll see a guy who plays for some nubs local club for their country, especially a team like North Macedonia, all of a sudden get on the world stage and actually play relatively well. So it's definitely exciting to see. So this is something that I often more often than not, I don't pay attention to much leading into these types of tournaments because I'm so focused in on the club season. But once it starts, I understand how these types of tournaments got me involved in this sport from a spectator standpoint in the first place.
Yeah. So Los.
Hello.
Goran Pandev scored for North Macedonia. He may be the only person in the tournament who's actually older than you.
Well, maybe, I don't know. Is he retirement age yet? Because that's about what I'm pushing.
He retired once.
Okay.
But came back to help them through this tournament. What were your thoughts on this weekend so far, Los?
Well, as far as overall in both tournaments, if you're looking at Euros, you're looking at Copa America, it's early. I mean, every team just about has played a game. We got like a group and a half has to play tomorrow, but it's early and it's only one game. And even if your team lost over this weekend, it doesn't mean that you're out. Things can happen and things can change. So it's too early to call as far as that's concerned. Now, with that said, I'm actually surprised, even though Argentina drew 1-1 earlier to Chile this 11 days ago, that they drew again 1-1 today. That was surprising to me. Messi, of course, always comes through and as far as when he gets his moment on the free kicks, 57 of them in his career that he scored from a direct free kick. So and today's was great. It was from 30 yards out. It was beautiful. And if you actually go historically, just 11 days before against Chile, his free kick was blocked by the same goalkeeper. But then today, Messi went the same way and beat him this time, and from 30 yards out. It was something to see. A side note, the free kick was set up by Gio Lo Celso. He got fouled right at the top of the arc, and that set up the play, the free kick there. And as a matter of fact, I'll be honest, Lo Celso had a pretty good first half today. He was absent in the second half and got subbed out. But the first half, he was working his way to being man of the match, as far as I was concerned. A lot of great passing, and so there you go with that. I was surprised that Nicolas Gonzalez blew two awesome chances right in front of the goal. One of the first half, one of the second half, and then he got subbed out. And I'm like, you know what? It probably is a good thing he got subbed out. Go and reflect on your game. So that's taking me a little bit aback. I expected Argentina to win today, and they did not. I expected Brazil to win yesterday, and they did. And so for the most part, the teams that are supposed to win are winning. Although I will say, and I don't know if you caught this, but Bolivia is up 1-0 at the half. But Bolivia is also playing with 10 men now because one of their guys got a second yellow card right before the end of the half on a really cheap shot. I mean, he just stuck his leg out for no good reason and kicked the guy in the shins. So it was obvious. But so I don't know about that 80-1. Sean, I see is in the room now. I don't know about that 80-1 to make the final anymore. So because they're playing with 10 men, they're only up 1-0, and they aren't really putting much offense to it. So they've still got another half to do right now, but we're here talking. So that's Copa America.
I've got to say, I was almost late for this because I was watching that game. There was the board had 8 additional minutes up. Then there was the red card fiasco. It was like 12 additional minutes. That was the end of the first half.
It's nuts. Hey, I did some math. I know you guys don't want to talk math. Well, I did some math. All right. In the 10 games in the Euros, you got a grand total of 198 fouls, which is about 19 fouls a game, maybe almost 20. 18 cards total 18 cards. That's it. But with the matter of fact, the England-Croatia game had the most cards, 4 yellows, and most so far in the Euros. Well, on the low end, the fewest cards you have for any of the Copa America games, they've only had 3 and 3.5. So far, it's 4. That's the minimum. So this is Hackfest 2021. Copa America always, the South American game is always rougher than the European game. And it's kind of difficult to watch and get into, especially if you're used to watching what happens in Europe, because they play a totally different style there. But it's crazy how many cards they had so far, and it's only been 3.5 matches. It's crazy.
And definitely enough injury time, because at the end of the Argentina-Chile game, second half injury time, 7 minutes.
Right. And the first half was 8, like Mike said.
Yeah.
For the Bolivia game.
I mean, they're only giving you about a quarter of the actual time that's spent rolling around on the floor.
Mm-hmm. So, well, Will, how's it going for you?
Well, in Sean's league, I'm joint top of predicting what's going to happen in the Euros, so that's pretty nice after basically the first match day. I will not lie. I don't understand how I got Poland into the finals of that. I just sort of didn't want France. So I put Poland in instead. But, it was sort of it was the football that I watched, it was good. Like, especially the Poland game today. I really enjoyed that first half. I really thought the Poland-Slovakia game today was really enjoyable. But the England-Croatia game, I won't lie, I fell asleep. I almost missed a goal because I fell asleep. It was dull. It was the same stuff that you expect from a Gareth Southgate team. It wasn't inspired. I mean, they won. And I don't have my hopes up about that team, especially because I was watching it and there really only seemed to be one or two players on that field that really, really wanted it. And they ended up influencing the game and winning the game for England. But apart from that, that game was kind of dull. And the other games that I've seen, the Spain game, I think that the safest thing that you can do if you're playing Spain is pass the ball to Alvaro Morata at the top of the box. Because, I mean, come on. I can understand me missing that goal because I'm not paid any money and I'm kind of bad at football. But for someone who's paid money to play, you shouldn't be missing a chance like that. And really, the games, in my point of view, have been interesting in several ways, but not the most entertaining football matches I've ever seen in my life.
You have to be happy though well, I guess not happy because he's leaving now. But Gigi Wijnaldum had himself a game yesterday for Netherlands.
I mean,
he was all over the place.
Yeah, he's an incredible player. PSG are lucky to have him. He's the sort of player that they're actually going to need if they want to compete in the Champions League. And it's really sad for Liverpool that he's leaving, but I kind of do understand why he's leaving. And I respect the fact that he basically said, you aren't going to pay me as much as them. I have worked hard for your team, but I'm going to leave now. And I'm going to go wherever I want to go. And I respect that. I mean, he is a great servant to the club. He's a great servant to any club that has him because he's going to run over every blade of grass and he's going to try and score. And he doesn't do that for Liverpool, but he obviously does that for the Netherlands because in the Netherlands, he plays as a center attacking midfielder. And in Liverpool's team, he basically plays as a center defensive midfielder. So, a very versatile player. And I think that any team would be lucky to have him.
Sean, tell me about Calvin Phillips had himself a game for England. Not a lot of players on that team could say that cover themselves in glory, but I did not see that coming from that young man.
No, as they say, Mike, it's coming home, as we were singing in the pub, probably for about 3.5 hours. I'm a bit worried, Will. You mentioned the word they a few times. So who's we for you? When you mentioned England, you said they didn't play very well. Who's the we?
Well, it's not we until the finals.
Oh, is it? Okay, right. Okay.
Because, I can't be hurt again.
Okay, so
I can't be hurt again.
Gets the final. That's fair enough. Cam, what's happened with Kieran Tierney? That was just so sad. It was like a whole deflation.
Like you knew Sean couldn't wait to get in here and talk to Cam. You knew that.
Yeah. Tell us how it happened, Cam.
Yeah, I actually am not. I haven't seen anything about this. I mean, the massive team change that, for whatever reason, he took a team that's been winning consistently and completely switched it up. I mean, the whole situation is about as Scottish as you get. You know, something's working, then we do something to change it, and it breaks. Granted, it's broken. We have this really good game. We play really well, and we still lose. I mean, it's just stereotypically Scottish, and you know, when it comes to sports, it really is a wonder. I mean, Stephen O'Donnell was absolutely useless that game. He was honestly, it was like we were playing with 10 men. Well, maybe even less, honestly, the rate at which some of the other players were playing. But I really think if we'd had Tierney and Robertson partnered up, you know, I think that left side, it would have just been beautiful. Exactly. Well, it just would have been a completely different game. Yeah, no, it's depressing. This was our must-win game, and of course now we're going to be kind of trying to claw our way back up to the top. And you know, I'll be honest, I don't know if it's the biggest
Bring
confidence
on
booster before
Friday.
Friday. Yeah, exactly.
Bring on Friday.
I mean,
sorry, Mike, I didn't answer your question. I thought Phillips was outstanding. I was one of the few people who were watching the game that applauded the fact that we started with Phillips. I would not have started with Henderson. And actually, even though I didn't want Sterling to start, I think he had a relatively good game as well. So boring game, but who cares? 3 points in the bag. We did it Spurs. We did it Spurs style. So
the only person
that's
that
fine.
switched out was Foden.
Listen, at the moment, I think we can't fail now. We can't fail not to finish third. There's going to have to be some really weird results. And in fact, I hope we finish third because I think then we avoid Germany and France and Portugal.
Yeah,
and
the way this all sets up is very interesting because if you do it and people finish where they are expected to based on what we think is going to happen, you're going to set up that bracket that's going to have the likes of like France, Germany, or France, Belgium, Spain all on one side of the bracket, and another side that's going to have like the Dutch. And to be honest, as much as happy as I was that the Dutch won, because that was my the game. So my thing for the tournament is, as always, to go out. I try and catch a game a day, and I wear a different jersey. So my pick was the Dutch Ukraine game. Sorry, Mikey, but you know, the Dutch won, so I was able to get out of there and look reasonably intelligent because, you know, it really stinks when you're the one guy wearing a kit in the pub and you have the one on for the team that loses. But thank you for a late minute Gigi Wijnaldum goal for making sure that I didn't look too stupid. But
you could do a pretty good Rude Gullit impersonation, I reckon, Mike, couldn't you? Yeah. No, I'm just saying, but with the hair as well, you could be spot on.
Oh yeah, I had my hair out yesterday.
You'll be good to go.
I had my hair out yesterday, so I was really pulling it off. Yes.
Dude, I tell you, if I had hair and dreadlocks a little longer with the porn stash in the 90s, it would have looked just like Ruud Gullit, just like him.
That was probably back then. That could have been good for business. So, Mikey, Poland, Ukraine, both their teams took it on the chin.
Yeah, my Eastern European sides were not looking all that impressive.
But you still have Slovakia.
Well, that's on this program last week, I warned you about the defense of Slovakia. You know, I said that they're a pack it in kind of team. And you know what? I did mention Skriniar, and Skriniar had just an absolutely awesome game today. He scored a goal, which, you know, that's awesome for a defensive back, but he was also just dominant. And, you know, Lewandowski got no sights at goal at all, really. Which I guess is probably, it makes sense that that's the rap on the Polish team, is that it's Lewandowski, and they've got a bunch of people who just don't carry the water around him. It's a shame that there's no Milik, but I don't know what was Krychowiak doing out there today. I mean, you know,
Your guess is as good as mine.
It was terrible. He was having a terrible game before he made dumb decision to step on a guy's foot and get a red card. Though I must say that Poland and Ukraine both looked as though the moment was a little bit too big for them in the first halves of their respective games. Although they didn't concede. And then they, and then Poland comes out in the beginning of the second half when they had 11 men and looked like they had it figured out. And then Krakowiak gets sent off, and well, that's the end of that. It was only a matter of time, and Skriniar putting it in. The first goal was almost bad luck. The guy, he made a really skillful move. He got around, but Szczesny did have I felt he had it covered. And then it bounces off the post and off his head and into the goal.
That first goal was just a combination of some of the worst defending I've ever seen and some not very good goalkeeping.
Yeah.
I mean, the first two games, not for nothing, Cam. That one goal, the Czech Republic's second goal. What was going on there?
Yeah, so the good thing is that, that happened in our game. Scotland was a part of that history making. That's what we get out of that. But I don't know. Being that far outside of his box, I think there's some serious questions to be asked now about who's going to be starting on Friday in goal. David Marshall is just not looking top form today whatsoever. Both goals, really good goals, but that Schlick goal from like 40 yards out. I don't know if you guys have seen the angle that it takes. It's absolutely insane. And yeah, I have to give him credit. He played a great game. Obviously, I wish he was playing for us and not, against us. But that was just, it kind of summed up, parts of the game where we kind of let things slip a little bit. And it just, it cost us the game, unfortunately.
So let's be a little bit, we've touched a few specifics. Let's talk about something. Who's been your biggest surprise throughout the tournament or thus far? Now, we still have 2 group games left, and it features the group of death. Portugal-Hungary kick off things tomorrow at noon, Eastern time in the U.S. And then the latter game is France and Germany. I will definitely be out finding a place to watch that. But I'll start with you, Stead. What's been your biggest surprise thus far?
I think with because of my limited ability to watch games this past week, and my choices are rather limited, but I really, really enjoyed watching Alexander Isak play today for Sweden. And I was really upset when they took him out because I kind of knew that was the end of the game and it would turn into let's see if we can get a point, because if we can, we're sitting pretty good for that potential third place opportunity for Sweden. Because I thought the Sweden team did not look good at all. Outside of him, the attack was very poor touches, very poor fundamental skill that you expect from players at this level. So, but I saw a guy who's 6'4" with feet that were unbecoming of a man his size, as well as a player who was really the only one imposing any real threat on the Spanish defense. And you saw him getting double and triple teamed, and he was still able to create chances and get a shot. So for a team that had 15% of the possession today, I really thought that he stood out. And yes, Chelsea, Mike, you're exactly right. Real Sociedad's phone was ringing off the hook today. I definitely believe so. And our good buddy's going to join us on Wednesday. Germany Rob said that he was on the way to possibly being a solid player in Germany prior to him being sold because he wanted more playing time. And seeing him play today, you could see why he would want that. I think that as a player, due to his size and his feet, that I don't think he'll be at Real Sociedad very long. And, you know, it's almost like they have their new Zlatan who's going to carry that Swedish squad that really I felt like underperformed today. And we're really, really lucky to get that point to a respectable start to their tournament, because I did not think they looked very good at all.
Looks like Ireland, Republic of Ireland, had missed a trick as well, recruitment-wise, because on Wikipedia he calls himself Alexander Isaac Murphy. So that Murphy would tend to suggest that maybe there's a bit of Irish parentage somewhere there. So Irish FA.
Odd, because he's Eritrean. He's Eritrean, which is
he's Eritrean. Yeah.
Yeah,
But apparently he's added Murphy to the end of his name. I don't know.
Yeah.
Check him out on Wikipedia.
Cam, what was your biggest surprise thus far?
Well, I guess looking past the horrific loss today, I think someone who I so far have enjoyed is actually Ciro Immobile. I thought he played a really, really good game. You know, and I think he's getting up there now. And it was really impressive to watch him play against Turkey. I thoroughly enjoyed him playing. And then I actually also really enjoyed Dedrick Boyata playing, you know, an ex-Celtic boy, see how far he's come. I thought he played a fantastic game with the Netherlands. And it's just, I think it's really nice to see, you know, he was a solid defender with us, you know, occasionally had those moments, those lapses, but he seems to have turned into a really, really solid defender. So I think the two of those, you know, both those players, I've really enjoyed watching through the tournament so far, and I'm really excited to, you know, see them progress hopefully and kind of see what they can make happen next.
Los, what you got for us?
I got a few surprises. The things that just kind of caught me off guard. Obviously, we already talked a little bit about Spain, Sweden. The fact that Spain had 85% possession and 17 shots on and to 4, 5 on goal to 1, 849 passes to 107, and couldn't get the most important statistic, which is scoring a goal. That's coming away with just 1 point instead of 3 points. That was a big surprise. They really should have put the Swedes away, but they didn't. And so that's the nature of the game. You got to score the goals. I don't care how good you look on paper. You know, with all your stats and all, it's got to be goals that matter. That's how you win the game. But aside from that, the two big goal scorers of the past season, Lewandowski and Kane, pretty much being non-existent in their games. It kind of just it's like they weren't even there. They were invisible. And as much as I love Harry Kane, when he was subbed out late in the game on Sunday, he had a look of shock on his face, like, what? Me being subbed? I never get subbed. I'm getting subbed? What? He had that look of shock on his face as he was leaving. But he had done nothing in the match. Really, he was pretty much non-existent. Same as Lewandowski. That I think to me is kind of surprising for guys who won their respective golden boots, especially with Lewandowski, 50 some odd goals, right? So it's just to me that was a shock that they pretty much had no effect on their game, that on the respective games. That was a shocking thing to me.
All right, Sean, what do you got?
I would agree with, I can't remember whose comment it was, but Cam's. I was very impressed by Italy. I didn't quite realise that they were that strong. They only play with two little guys up front, don't they? Immobile and
Insigne, yeah.
Insigne, yeah. And I thought they looked. I couldn't work out why the bookmakers had them third or fourth favourites, but that explained to me exactly why the bookmakers had them third or fourth favourites. So I think they'll go far. I will give a hat off to Phil Foden, who I thought had an excellent game for us yesterday. And obviously he's been hyped up over the last 3 or 4 years, and I think we might see him come good this tournament. I'm delighted that Southgate had the balls to play him.
Was it Paul Gascoigne or Phil Foden? Who was that?
Yeah. Well, no. Phil Foden.
He got a caution like Paul did, so you know.
Yeah, true. I don't think he knows what the dentist chair is because he's probably not had a drink his entire life. But there we go. We can't get everything. And I am thoroughly now looking forward to the game tomorrow. But so Belgium look good as well. So some of the favourites are coming through. I don't think we'll necessarily see any shocks or surprises. I think Spain will get through that group as well. And personally, as I think we're having more podcasts this week, aren't we?
Yes. We'll be back on Wednesday.
Back on Wednesday. I'm obviously now getting very excited, waiting for our next game on Friday. Bring it on.
We'll talk a little bit more about that before we wrap up the show. Actually, Sean, I was impressed by Belgium, but I thought a little bit in the second half, Russia with the press really kind of was able to get after them, and had Russia had a bit more to them in the midfield and able to score, they might have actually gotten something out of that game. Yeah. There was a stretch of time there early where Russia was pressing them, and if I was another team, I'd be looking at that and saying, okay, they can be undone. It was a little bit interesting that Roberto Martinez elected to keep Eden Hazard out of the starting lineup until the very end, and they are also playing without Kevin De Bruyne, who they expect to be back at least by the knockout stages. So it could be one of those things where we see them kind of like Germany did back in 2014, where they kind of just need to grow into the tournament. But, you need to get your first one out, and there were certainly times where they looked a little bit off. Mike, give us your thoughts.
I mean, can I say it? Can I say what we haven't said throughout this entire show? I mean, the most shocking thing that happened this weekend was we watched a player go down and nearly die on a soccer field. But even more shocking than that, they then forced the team to go back out and play, which I know that their federation gave the consent to go on, but they lost the game to a Finland team that I don't think would have beaten them under normal circumstances. I think the most shocking result this weekend was Finland 1, Denmark 0. But the circumstances that were around that were shocking, to say the least. So, I mean, to me, I don't know how the Danish team continues. I hope they put his jersey on a stick and they carry it around and they go out there and win the next two games. But to me, the Finnish side, the Finnish 1-0 victory was the most shocking result of the weekend in a lot of ways.
I was going to bring that up, and then we'll go back to that. I want to give Will a chance to finish off this round and say what his biggest surprise was before we go back and we actually dig a little bit deeper into what we watched, because by far, you're right, that is the most shocking thing. And I think it deserves its own conversation. So, Will, go for it. What was your biggest surprise of the weekend?
So I was thinking of saying the Denmark-Finland game, and then I thought, but it wasn't actually that surprising that it was forced to continue. So I'll talk about that a bit later on. But my biggest surprise was kind of Memphis Depay in the Dutch game in the first half. I really enjoyed watching him because there were some things that he managed to put through defenders and then keep going past the defenders that I thought that's completely impossible. That is stuff that people, if he'd scored the goal, I think some of you might know what I was talking about. It was him and two defenders were on the halfway line, basically. And he puts it between one's legs and then pushes it around another, keeps going straight towards the penalty area. He doesn't score the goal, but I thought that was some incredibly good skill and an incredibly good amount of awareness and control to be able to do what he did. So that was probably my most impressive part of that, of this first match day. my biggest surprise would probably have been Poland versus Slovakia. I mean, I didn't think, but I said it earlier that I thought that Poland got through to the final basically because I didn't want to put France in the final. So that's why they got so far in my bracket. But I did think that they were better than that. But then, sort of reading into a bit more about that Polish team, sacking the manager after the qualifying campaign that they had, that's just a terrible idea. I'm sorry, it's an awful idea. 8 wins, 1 draw, and 1 loss. More like, okay. But I guess that would be my biggest surprise in the results front of the 2-1 loss for Poland.
So let's talk about it.
Hang on. Before we get to the somber discussion on Christian Eriksen and his effect of what had happened to him and how it affected the game, I did want to come back to the Belgium game. They did dominate Russia, and the final score was 3-0. But if you take away the 2 defensive mistakes, it's only 1-0. And Russia, they did have their chances. Someone was talking about how they did have their chances earlier. But while it turned out to be a blowout on paper, it really was a closer game than what the score indicates. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Well, that's also like saying that if you take away the 2 howlers in the Scotland game, it's a draw.
Well, I hear what you're saying, but what I'm saying is, the Lukaku first goal. I mean, technically, if you go old school, that's offsides, and you move on. The second goal was another defensive mistake that shouldn't happen. It was rookie, almost like mistake. But his Lukaku's goal at the end of the match was great. That was an excellent play, excellent run, and shot and goal. It was great. And Belgium deserved to win the game. I mean, they played better than Russia, but Russia did have their chances, and it was a lot closer than 3-0. I felt.
I definitely felt. I will agree with you. I do think that in the end, it started to flatter Belgium probably a little bit more than it should have. And that especially in the second half, in the early part of the second half, Russia was able to get in and disrupt Belgium and keep them from playing. But it still looks like a Belgian team that has something to it. And given the nature of the group that they're in, it's really hard to see anything but now them finishing at the top of that group. Partially because the other teams that were in it are the teams that we got to talk about in Belgium and in Finland and Denmark. And, the loss of Christian Eriksen, who that was probably one of the most confusing, what was about an hour that I think that we've seen in a long time. He collapses in the 43rd minute. It has come out since. One of the reasons why I didn't want to go on Sunday or Saturday to talk about it was I wanted to get some more information, because as we were talking amongst ourselves, it was hard as we were processing to figure out what was going exactly on. And you could tell the biggest criticism that I have is I thought that they stayed with the images of him being treated on the sideline way too long. That's not something that should have been broadcast, just out of respect for humanity. If somebody's in that dire a crisis that they need to break out an AED and give them CPR, you probably don't need to be televising it. Because when they tell you that for all intents and purposes he was dead and that we needed to resuscitate him, you're showing images live on TV and offering commentary on a human dying on worldwide television. And that's I disagree wholeheartedly with that aspect of it. But fortunately, we're in a better position, I guess. What was 2003 was when Mark Vivian Foe collapsed and died on the pitch in the Confederations Cup. 2012, it was Fabrice Muamba who collapsed for Spurs. And, at the time, it was considered to be a miracle because AEDs weren't that common at football grounds. And so we've come now to the point where he was able to get the medical intervention and be stabilized enough that he was able to be moved. Um, I agree with you, Will. I don't, and Mike, and probably all of you, I don't think the game should have been played. We knew it needed to be played. My understanding is that they offered them the opportunity to continue and play the game that evening or to come back and play it at noon local time the next morning, which would have been before the other games kicked off. They, I guess, elected that it would make more sense to go out and finish it up that night rather than trying to go home, process, come back, finish the last 2 minutes of halftime. My other criticism is why the referee did not blow for halftime right there, even though it was the 43rd minute. Yeah. And before you tell me it can't happen like that, I've seen it happen in games.
I'm just telling you what the law book says, that they have to be 2 equal halves of 45 minutes. If you're going to play 43 in one half, that second half would also have to be 43. And because there's this is like a major tournament and statistics and all that,
I have seen it in a major tournament. In the case that I saw, it was not due to medical emergency. It was due to technical issues. But when United was playing Braga in the Champions League, the floodlights went out in the 40th minute. And rather than try and wait for them to come on, they blew halftime, took halftime, got the lights back on, and then played a 50-minute second half. Right. So I know for a fact that it has been done. I witnessed it. It was one of the strangest things that I've ever shown.
And that goes against the law book, just telling you.
Right.
Yeah, it goes against the law book, but also technically the time doesn't stop. So I mean, it's pedantism. It, like, the last 2 minutes of the first half, who cares?
I'm not saying that he's wrong.
I know
I'm
you're
saying
not
that
saying
according to the law book, it's supposed to be 2 equal halves of 45 minutes.
So I guess my biggest criticism goes to the handling of it by UEFA and the refs on the field. I am extremely happy, proud, whatever, grateful to the medical professionals who were able to get him conscious, stabilized. When you finally saw that picture of him looking relatively alert, like he's intubated, but he's got his hands on his head. He looks to be conscious. It was probably the most gratifying thing that you could have seen after that. So,
Mike,
yeah, go ahead.
Can I echo your criticism of the media coverage of it? I was here in my house watching it with my girlfriend. My girlfriend has a 5-year-old child. When it happened and they went to low angles, like almost underneath the wall, and you saw them doing CPR on a person. At that point, someone's got to know to cut the feed. And I don't know what the contracts are. I think a lot of this, and I'm sure Will is going to get into this, about the contracts and about the feeds and about, it needs to be played when there's no other games going on for television and all that. I mean, but when you cut to someone getting the CPR, at that point, I was like, this is really, really bad. And I was forced to think about, am I going to have to tell a 5-year-old child that a man just died before your eyes on a television screen? Like, it should have most certainly been cut and sent back to back to the studio. And they should have said, there is a terrible situation going on right now. We don't think that cameras should be showing it. They could have been that honest. I mean, they are that honest in other sort of disaster sort of situations. I agree with you. I am completely and utterly shocked by, I don't know, again, if it was the world feed or if it was ESPN here in the United States'
Well,
decision.
they're producing it, so they have a producer on site who's making the calls on how to frame this, right?
Yeah.
So they had the ability at any point in time to go away from that camera angle of the field shot to one of the other angles. They could have even just shown a sky cam photo of the entire stadium. They could have, and we've seen them do this with
The streakers.
other sports,
That's what I was gonna-
NFL, streakers. Yes.
Yep.
Why can't they? They did this because if you talk to a television producer, they'll say, at what point do you go away from this? Because that's the footage that you want. That's where the ratings come from. But this isn't ratings. This is a person. Cam, I sensed that you wanted to jump in for a second.
No, I was just going to agree. Like, I think, there's policies in place for streakers that come on the field. It's kind of mind-blowing that there isn't a policy for when someone is horrifically injured or something like that. Exactly as you're saying, I think from what I've seen is the BBC also continued to play it in the UK. ESPN did. So if there's these producers at different organizations that are willing to continue filming with something like that, I think there definitely needs to be something put in place, whether it's UEFA has to step in and alter their contracts or something like that. That a situation like this should never ever happen again. I think as Mike was saying, for some people that was probably very disturbing. I myself I'm an EMT on the weekends, and I've done CPR. I've revived people. I've been with people who have died, and it's a very intense thing. And for a young child to be watching that, it really does blow my mind that they continue to film something like that when someone is in such a dire place. It was a little disturbing.
I think that it was just an instance of the people behind the cameras forgetting that what is on the other side of the cameras are actual human beings, right? This isn't a play. This isn't theater. This is live sports. Showing the pictures of his partner on the sidelines, like just putting a camera on her, I think was inappropriate. Here's his girlfriend, wife. I'm not sure whether that's his wife or his girlfriend, but she's in shock as she's trying to figure out, like, is my partner dead, and process what is going on. And they are filming her while she's doing it. Like, she needed to be able to. But I think the best part, the only good thing that came out of that part of it was when you saw Simon Caher come over and start comforting her. He looked like somebody who was not delivering the worst possible news, right? And that was the only reason why I was somewhat confident, unlike some of us, that he was going to be stabilized and moved, rather than he passed. Was he didn't, his body language at that point in time, Schmeichel and Caher's body language didn't indicate that they were coming over to tell the coaches and his girlfriend, his wife, that he was gone. It seemed to indicate, like, not necessarily that they were out of the woods, but that he was stabilized enough that he could go receive further treatment. I know, Sean, you had a few things to say about it over the weekend. I don't know if you had any thoughts you wanted to share.
I was shocked. I was in total shock. I'm not defending the BBC, but we didn't actually see any images here of the CPD going on. I know that was the case. So I don't even know if there were two different companies filming it all. I actually quite enjoyed the fact that they did move over to I think it's his girlfriend, because that at least took the cameras away from what was bloody happening on the pitch with Christian. Very sad. Los might know this. What did they do with Muamba? Was the game finished off that game that day at White Hart Lane? I know it wasn't.
They actually they canceled that game completely. They went in and that was the end of it. And they replayed the game. I want to say a few days later. I think they replayed that message, but they can't. Because I remember actually watching that game live, and as soon as you didn't see footage of him actually falling until much later. And you only saw footage of the players. It's particularly, his name's leaving me, but he's a good friend of Muamba's who was clearly very disturbed. And he was playing because Muamba's playing for Bolton, and that did not, you didn't see anything until you saw him wheeling him off the field. That's all you saw in that game.
But it wasn't live though, was it? I don't think. I don't think it was live. Steph. I don't think it was being broadcast live at the time.
It might have been broadcast live over here, and
the game was being broadcast live over here. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
But they didn't but footage of him actually being attended to, you didn't see anything. At least I don't recall seeing a thing, and I remember watching that game.
So it's come out in the press over here today. Kasper Schmeichel's been on, and he was saying that they were offered 3 choices, which was to replay the game then, replay it the following day, or forfeit the game and lose 3-0. So they obviously, which seems very harsh to me, they were obviously not going to go for the 3-0 option. But I am surprised that they didn't leave it till the following day.
I guess the question is if we do the detached UEFA part of this, right? It is a tournament. The game needs to be played at some point in time, and it needs to be able to play because other results are dependent on it, right? Yeah. It then becomes a matter of when's the most appropriate time to be able to do this, where it still allows the players to presumably complete their next fixture, unless Denmark takes the option of withdrawing from the tournament completely. I was
Mike, hold on though, because if they played the following day, they'd have played. No, they'd have played Sunday, wouldn't they?
Mm-hmm.
Was the game on Saturday?
Yeah, the game was Saturday.
So why not then just put all of the Dutch games one day back?
I don't know whether it's because of scheduling, stuff like that. I don't think that it has to do with as much of that. What I'm saying is, would Denmark have been able to come back and then play their next game? And how would that have affected what the team that they were going to play next, right? I think playing on Sunday would have been fine. I think the question is, if it went much past Sunday, when would they have done that?
I see. No, well, they were saying it was either finish it now or play tomorrow. And I don't understand why Denmark didn't take the decision of playing the following day. I mean, I'm just talking about looking when they did that human shield around him. Mm-hmm. You could see, because the players were facing the camera, they were completely distraught.
I am with you.
They were not in a state of mind to go out.
Shocked that they elected to continue that game that day, right? Whether or not. Now, there have been reports that they spoke to him.
Yeah.
And maybe they felt like they could be buoyed by that enough to compete. I'm surprised that they went out and I thought for sure that they were going to come back and play it the next day. Now, what if Schmeichel's saying that they elected to? They felt like they weren't consulted enough. So did the federation elect to play it without talking to the players? Was it a matter of the coaching staff? Was it a matter of just a couple of captains? Was it a matter of not the team? Whoever made that decision. But I mean, I'm surprised they didn't play it. I don't think, though, that canceling it or the forfeit were ever real options. And if that's not on the table, then it becomes a matter of, well, you're going to play it at some point. It's just a matter of when. And I'm sorry, we'll try and make it as convenient on you as humanly possible. But
here's my thing is that we're playing in the era of COVID-19, right? So health and medical contingencies should have all been really thought out very well. And the option shouldn't have just been to forfeit if like 10-year guys crop up with COVID one day. I mean, I get it in a regular year that might have been the way that would have gone down. Well, if 10 of your guys get food poisoning in an era where COVID-19 doesn't exist, well, then you have to forfeit that day. Okay. But this is the COVID-19 era. And, there were players, Spain was affected today by COVID-19. And let's say there's a mass breakout. I mean, what's the plan? Is your team just forfeits the tournament?
Yeah.
I feel like contingency should have been in place, and all of the television partners involved throughout the entire world should have been on board with the fact that in this era, in 2020, stuff is going to be a little bit weird. And so, like, you're going to have to adjust your schedule. We're sorry. We're going to put on these games. I mean, I think if you move where you have two overlapping games, I get that the Premier League right now is just doing one game at a time for television purposes, but in previous eras of soccer that are like 2 years ago, games overlapped. So, I mean, like, to push one game back, two things to like 2 days in a couple of ways, it doesn't seem like it's that big a stretch. Especially in the era we're playing in. I'm a little bit disturbed that they were that caught unawares. And honestly, if they put it to them, you play today, you play tomorrow, or nothing. I don't know why UEFA wouldn't be a little bit more flexible in the face of someone having a cardiac arrest on the field. It just doesn't make sense.
I mean,
Yeah,
I think
I was just going to say, and that game where Czech Republic, was supposed to play Scotland, and they had that massive outbreak, amongst their team, and they again were given the choice, either play or forfeit 3-0, and they ended up playing their C squad because that's all they could do. I would have thought after something like that, as you're saying, they would have put more contingencies in place, health and safety wise, for something like COVID, and even taking into account, something like this. For whatever reason, FIFA or UEFA is just, they seemingly just, for whatever reason, are not taking COVID into account, I think, as much as they should be, and as much as other sports have been doing. And it is really odd.
I mean,
Well,
I think
we've seen it with. I think COVID and the Christian Eriksen thing are two completely different
Certainly.
situations, right? They put the COVID mitigation things in into place. They've got the testing, the quarantines, hotels, bubbles, all of that sort of stuff, right? We've expanded the number of players that you can carry, trying to deal with that. If there is a COVID outbreak, it's also another problem, because if there's a COVID outbreak, it takes a little bit longer to do that. So, what are we just going to stop the tournament because one team pops positive for COVID? And how does that affect their opponents who may or may not have done everything they are? I think the question with the Christian Eriksen thing, and where we need to kind of wrap up with this idea, is, I think we all can agree that it was the wrong decision to make them play that day. Like, I think it would have been even better if they had just not offered that as an option. On the UEFA side, I can see it if they're like, hey, look, if this is what you want to do, fine, you make the decision, right? We knew they weren't going to forfeit. We knew that they were going to play the game. If it had been Sunday, fine. Maybe they could have said, all right, you guys come back Monday and do it, right? They could have. I think Tuesday was getting a little bit too late because,
Right.
then
the
they
next
would have
fixtures were Thursday.
Thursday, right? So they could have either said play 12 o'clock Sunday or Monday.
Sunday.
Right.
Yeah, play Sunday. It's really
Well,
only
that's
playing
when they did.
they're playing half the match.
Mhm.
You aren't playing a full match either. So you've had a chance to recover from the first half, and then you go play out, your second half. It's not like playing a full game in one day and then you get your rest period. It's a little different, a little awkward, but I mean, I think playing on Sunday would have been more prudent as opposed to playing on Saturday. And they would still had enough rest time for the next match, which was going to be Thursday.
I think if I could also say, I think it highlights a deficiency of the format that they've chosen. I feel like if if they were playing in one country or two neighboring countries or whatever, and they didn't have to travel 6 hours, to their next game or, whatever. If they were all sort of concentrated in one place, well, then they could say, all right, now you'll play Monday, and instead of your Thursday game, you'll play Friday because you've got an hour plane ride or whatever. I think it does highlight the deficiency where if these travel plans have to be so rigid, it's not a good format going forward. They should just stick to one country or
I mean,
two.
I think that
Although
it's
there's
kind
another
of
problem with this in that Finland were playing Wednesday. So I know Denmark were playing Thursday, but Finland's fixtures Wednesday. So maybe
go
that
ahead.
might not have
Will,
given
make your point.
Finland enough time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's kind of this whole tournament's a bit incredibly crazy, especially in the COVID era. Like, why are you playing in every different country in Europe? That's a dumb idea in an era of a global pandemic. Why are you forcing a team to go out and play when one of their players has literally died on the field and been brought back to life? That's a terrible idea. I mean, of course, the players are going to say, okay, I'm probably more amped up and able to play this evening than I'm going to be able to play tomorrow, because they're going to, if they played the next day, they're going to have to process it, and then they're going to have to go through the night where they're probably not going to sleep. They're probably not going to do anything productive during that night. So they think, well, we might as well finish it off today. I mean, that would be my idea about it. I mean, I don't think that there were any good options for the Denmark-Finland game. And, had Denmark won this game, we would be applauding the fact they won the game. The reason that we're talking about it in depth is because they lost the game. I think that the points that were brought up about the fact there's no contingency plan for any health issues are really good ones. Like, what happens if two different teams, like 4 or 5 different teams get struck down with COVID? Does the tournament keep going? Does it not keep going? I mean, because these are things that should have been thought out, and it's obvious that they haven't been thought out. And
Well,
also the things about the broadcasting, pay the damn fine. Say you get told that you have to broadcast 45 minutes a half, pay the fine. It's going to be £20,000, whatever it is. Pay that fine. Yeah, sure, that sucks, but I mean, come on, it's much better to pay the fine and show a picture of the sky or go back to the studio before the presenters are ready. I mean, I understand
really don't think though that that's a fine.
I said before this that I understood that I thought about it a bit, and I wasn't surprised with what happened. But the reason I wasn't surprised is because I know how scumbaggy and terrible UEFA and everything about televising football is. That's why I wasn't surprised. You saw the issues that came up with the European Super League. You saw the issues that came up with the new Champions League format. You see the issues where the players are abused consistently by the organizations that run them. I'm not surprised by those because they happen so consistently.
Well, I was going to say, doesn't the fact that that UEFA had this idea that we're going to do this all over Europe thing to celebrate our anniversary, and the fact that they stuck with it, despite the fact that it would have been infinitely more, practically reasonable and just better for the players to have it in like one spot, doesn't that just highlight their arrogance? They're like, you know what, we had an idea and we're gonna do it, and we don't care. Like, we don't care. We'll send you from Russia to
We'll send you from Azerbaijan to
Copenhagen.
Scotland.
Right? Yeah.
Well,
sure.
look, I think that's a bad idea, and we're going to wrap up the discussion with this. I think that's a bad. I think they shouldn't have done that, but some of the onus also goes on the federations themselves. Croatia and the Czech Republic, even though all of their games right now for the first part of the tournament are going to be in Scotland and England, are not staying in Scotland and England. They're flying back to Croatia and the Czech Republic because they're upset with the COVID protocols in England, which I believe are stricter than the ones in Croatia and the Czech Republic. So that's their call, right? So yes, they had this grand idea, and they had the hubris to think that they could pull it off even in this era after they had to shut it down last year because of COVID. But the individual federations themselves aren't exactly always making the right decisions in the best interest of their players. But we're going to take our leave for today and pick this back up again on Wednesday when we get to review the game from tomorrow and preview the game of the week, the one that we collectively are all looking forward to, the Tartan Army and the Three Lions. One or possibly two, 1.5, depending on how Will decides he wants to feel that day. Somebody's going to be very happy. Somebody's going to be very upset. And we will see on Friday. So as we hit the bricks, I want to thank the guys for joining me, Chelsea, Mike, British Will, Los, Sean, and Celtic Cam. And as always, producer Stead for keeping everything running on time. I was watching the Paraguay-Bolivia game, but it seems that has gotten out of hand very quickly, like Will Farrell and Anchorman. So I want to thank you all, and we will be back for the cast of thousands. Mike, this has been the Too Many Soccer Guys tournament edition. We did all right today. We'll try and do even better on Wednesday. Take care.